Guten Tag, es ist sehr kalt hier in Crowborough, also hier ist ein kleines Video für euch. Und ein paar Vokabeln, die Vorsilbe oder das Präfix, das trennbare Verb, ein trennbares Verb oder dieses Verb ist nicht trennbar, ist dieses Verb trennbar und ein nicht trennbares Verb, ist das richtig? Oder ein untrennbares Verb ist wahrscheinlich besser. Also, wir haben schon einige trennbare Verben gesehen. Einige Beispiele davon sind Fernsehen, aufstehen, mitnehmen. And we signify that they are separable by adding this line underneath the prefix that we will remove. Always helpful to look at how our language differs from the language that we're learning, and actually in English we have separable phrasal verbs and inseparable phrasal verbs. If you look at the ones on the left, you have your mobile phone. I can see it. Hand it over to me now. The hand and the over is separated by the word it. I will lend you some money, but you will have to pay me back. And we have inseparable phrasal verbs where you do not separate the verb from the sort of equivalent of our German prefix. Get in the car now. Face up to it. Homework is a fact of life. This poster shows some separable and inseparable prefixes, a lot of which you'll be familiar with. Abfahren, ankommen, aufstehen, ausgehen, einkaufen, Fernsehen. Might be useful to actually look up one of those and see how many verbs you can actually find in German that actually start with that prefix. And then, of course, non-separable prefixes, b, ent, emp, g, mis, ver, zerstören, to destroy, bekommen, bestehen, empfehlen, and two I've written on the right-hand side that are not normally separable as well. So how do we use them? Well, you know, for example, already that in the present tense, if it is a regular verb, for example, rufen is a regular verb, and just because you put the prefix on it still means that you use the actual verb regularly. So ich rufe, du rufst, ruft, wir rufen, ihr ruft, wir rufen. That of course changes if you select an irregular verb. To show you an irregular verb, I've chosen laden and einladen, which means to invite. We've got hochladen, herunterladen, we've also encountered. And the verb then goes ich lade ein, but because it's irregular and it's a stem change verb, the du and sie, s forms, second and third person, need to add an umlaut. Du lädst mich ein, lädt dich ein. And then when we get to the ear form, you need an extra e, like you would for arbeiten, on your verb. The prefix, of course, in the present tense is sent to the end of the sentence. Of course, anrufen actually becomes irregular in the past tense, but it was really just to show you that those are the regular endings that you would use. When it comes to the imperfect, of course, it works a little bit like the present tense, where you're going to have to put your prefix at the end. Ausmachen, for example, to turn off, to switch off, would look like this. Ich mach, so what's the imperfect ending? Oh yeah, machte. Ich machte das Licht, and then aus at the end. If we choose a couple of the verbs that we just looked at that are irregular, so let's take anrufen. Okay. Actually, I'm only supposed to be underlining the prefix, aren't I? Never mind. Now, anrufen looks like this is a verb. So, ruft, rief, hat, angerufen. Okay, so if you're learning your verbs that way, that's the bit you need. That's your imperfect stem for the third person. And so, I rang my mother is going to be ich rief meine Mutti an. another example, we rang our mother. Wir riefen unsere Mutter an. We'll take einladen as well because we've just done that. Now einladen, when you learn it, it's late, then it's lud, and then it's geladen. Okay, so we invited friends, so I'm going to take my lud here. Wir luden Freunde ein. Okay, I invited friends. Ich lud meine Freunde ein. So these examples show imperfect of these separable verbs. For future and modal verbs, of course, you don't have to do much magic there at all. You're going to just write, for example, I want to watch TV now. Well, of course, to watch television is Fernsehen, and because you've used a modal verb here, from wollen, your infinitive and its prefix, joined together, go at the end of the sentence, and you add the rest of your information in the middle. So when you're using the future tense, again, you need to put your infinitive at the end. So if I wanted to say, when will you come back? I've got my verb to come back, which needs to go at the end. Zurückkommen. Join together. And then, of course, when will you? Wann wirst du zurückkommen? Wann wirst du zurückkommen? When it comes to perfect tense, you of course need to consider the verb that you're using, and obviously the auxiliary verb as well. So for example, I know rufen goes with ich habe, so it goes with haben in the past tense. Ich habe meine Mutter, and then generally you'll find if they're using GE, it will go in the middle of your word. Of course, rufen is irregular in the past tense. Ich habe meine Mutter angerufen. Zurückkommen, however, kommen goes with sein in the perfect tense, but again, ich bin 9 Uhr zurückgekommen. Ich bin 9 Uhr zurückgekommen. So my ge tends to go in the middle. Examples with zu and infinitive clauses show that the zu goes in between the prefix and the verb. So, for example, it's always good to arrive punctually. Es ist immer gut, pünktlich anzukommen. The second example I started and couldn't rub out, so it doesn't really make sense. But using zu, ich fahre nach Deutschland, fern zu sehen. Quite a nice idea is to take a separable prefix and find out how many useful verbs you can get from that. So you've got eintragen, einladen, einsetzen, einlösen, einsehen, einstellen, einschalten, einfallen, einbauen, einatmen und einziehen. And we say einkaufen. And perhaps look up some of the meanings and learn them together. So choose another prefix, perhaps ab or auf, and see how many useful verbs you can find in a dictionary that begin with that. Finally, you were given that last week, or some of these sentences, on a sheet. I think I attached it to class charts, and they're for you to translate. So the only advice I'd really give you is to look out for what the separable verb is in each example, if you haven't already done so. So watch television, we know is Fernsehen. Invited, we've just seen. Phone, we've just seen. Lights, came back, I won't do any more. And then secondly, to think about the tense that's in it. They watch television every evening. That's got to be present. He invited me to the party, so that's past. I will phone my sister tomorrow. And you should actually find that relatively easy. Viel Spaß! Make a list of any questions you've got and we'll cover this during the next lesson. And finally, Schnee von gestern. Literally, it means snow from yesterday, but it actually means yesterday's news. Was ist denn das? Ist doch klar, das ist Schnee von gestern. Beispiel. Ach, das iPhone 5 ist doch Schnee von gestern. Ich brauche jetzt das iPhone 6. Well, that's obviously already Schnee von gestern. You can replace the numbers on there with the latest iPhone numbers. I'm not quite sure what they are. Es ist mir alles wurscht. Tschüss.